"You're right, kid. And I'm Superman." The cop's laugh echoed across the park like a slap. People turned to look. The boy, no older than 11, stood frozen, eyes wide, lips pressed together like he was holding back tears. His skin glowed deep brown under the sunlight, and his little fists trembled at his sides. He had only said, "My dad's in Special Forces," trying to explain why he wasn't afraid when the cops pulled up and started questioning him like he didn't belong. The officer had laughed so loud he almost dropped his coffee. "Special Forces? That's a new one. What's next?" "Your uncle's the president." The boy's voice was soft, but it was full of something ancient, anger that didn't sound like it belonged in a child's throat. "My dad is in Special Forces. He's coming." The cop snorted. "Yeah? Tell your invisible Rambo daddy to bring me a donut." But then he did. The sound hit first. Not from a car, but the wind shifted like something was coming fast. Everyone stopped moving. The leaves rustled strange. And then a tall shadow moved through the trees. People stepped back. The cop looked up, confused, then tensed. The man who walked out didn't wear a uniform, but you didn't need one to know he wasn't normal. His boots hit the ground like war drums. His eyes didn't blink. The tattoo on his forearm looked military, but the way he moved, that was different. Controlled, trained, dangerous. He walked straight past everyone, past the shocked mom with the stroller, past the teens on their phones, right up to the cop who had been laughing. The man didn't yell. He didn't have to. "Did you say something to my son?" The officer's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The boy, still standing behind the cop, looked up. His eyes sparkled now, not with tears, but something else. Something had changed. And just as the man stepped forward, everything stopped. 2 days earlier, the sun had barely come up when James pulled on his hoodie, tied his sneakers, and slipped out the back door. His mom had already left for her shift at the diner, and she'd packed him a sandwich in a paper bag with a note that just said, "Be brave today. I love you." He always tried. But being brave didn't stop what happened at school. At Jefferson Middle, James was used to being one of the only black kids in his class. Most of the time, it didn't matter. But sometimes it did. Like when Mrs. Winchell always accidentally called him by another black kid's name from 3rd grade, even though that kid moved away. Or when Hunter and his friends called him the fast one and thought it was a compliment. Or when the security guard followed him every time he went to the bathroom during recess. Still, James kept quiet. He got good grades. He stayed out of trouble. That's what his mom told him to do. Just stay under the radar, baby. Don't give them a reason. But that Tuesday morning, something felt different. It started when Hunter cornered him by the lockers. "Hey, James Bond." Hunter grinned, leaning in with that mean boy smile. "Heard your dad's in the army or something. Is that why you're always acting like you're better than us?" James didn't respond. He just kept organizing his books, like his hands weren't shaking. "Bet he ran off. That's what they do, right?" Hunter said, snorting. "You ever even met him?" James turned slowly. "My dad is in the Special Forces." Hunter burst out laughing. "Yeah, and I'm Batman." A few other kids laughed too, and that laugh stayed with James the whole day. It followed him into math class, into lunch, and even to the bus ride home. When he got off at the park to wait for his mom, something he'd done 100 times before, he didn't notice the cop car parked across the street. Not until the window rolled down and a voice called out, "Hey, kid." James turned, blinking. The officer stepped out, sunglasses reflecting the afternoon sun. "You live around here?" James nodded. "Just waiting for my mom." The cop looked him up and down. "What's in the bag?" James showed him the sandwich and the note. The cop looked at it for too long. "Stand over here," he said, motioning toward the car. James frowned. "I didn't do anything." "You match a description," the cop said. "We had a call about someone suspicious." "I've been at school," James said quietly. "You can check with." "Don't get smart with me," the cop snapped. James's fists clenched. "My dad's in Special Forces." That's when it happened. The laugh, the humiliation, the crowd, the disbelief. And that's when something inside James cracked. Not broke, just cracked open. He didn't run. He didn't cry. He just said again, "He's coming." And then he waited. That night, at home, his mom noticed how quiet he was. "What happened?" she asked, crouching beside him while he sat on the edge of his bed. James hesitated. "They didn't believe me." "Who?" He shook his head. "I told them about Dad." Her face changed, just a little, like clouds moving in front of the sun. She sat beside him and held his hand. Sometimes people don't believe what they can't understand, baby. But that's on them, not you. Why don't people believe me? She rubbed his back softly. Because they don't expect boys like you to have heroes. But you do. James nodded slowly, then whispered, "Can he come?" His mom was quiet for a moment. Then she stood up and picked up the phone. "He'll come," she said. "But when he does, it has to be the right time." And the next day, everything began to move toward that time. The whispers at school didn't stop. Hunter was worse than ever. Teachers were watching James like he was made of glass, or like they were afraid he might explode. After school, James decided not to go straight to the park. Instead, he walked 3 extra blocks to the other side, where the baseball fields were. It was quieter there. He was standing by the fence, picking at the old rust, when someone shouted behind him, "Hey, stop right there." It was another cop. Not the same one from the day before, but just like him. James froze. He hadn't done anything. But that didn't matter. The officer walked fast, hand on his holster. James's heartbeat thudded. Then he remembered. He looked up at the sky. Then he whispered, "Now." And everything changed. The wind picked up again. Branches swayed. The grass shivered. A black SUV turned the corner, moving slow, steady. Then came the sound, footsteps. Not rushed, not afraid. And then, a shadow moved through the trees. James turned. The officer turned. And from the space between the light and the leaves, a man stepped out, and the world stopped moving. The man didn't rush. He didn't need to. His presence rolled ahead of him like thunder before a storm. Broad-shouldered, tall, built like the kind of guy you only see in movies. The kind where explosions happen behind him and he doesn't flinch. But it wasn't just how he looked. It was how he moved. Like he'd walked through wars just to make it to this moment. James stared, heart pounding. It had been over a year since he'd last seen him in person. But he'd know his dad anywhere. The officer who had just shouted at James took a step back. His hand dropped from his holster. Something flickered in his eyes. Confusion, then something worse. Fear. The man stopped a few feet away. "Is there a problem with my son?" he asked, voice even but sharp as a knife's edge. The cop's lips parted, no sound coming out at first. I thought," he matched a call description. "Name?" The cop blinked. "WH what?" "My name," the man said slowly. "Say it." The officer stammered. I don't." The man pulled a badge from his pocket. It was black. No shine. No ID tag like the ones police carried. Just a deep seal, stamped clean. Government. The officer's eyes widened as he looked closer. Then his face changed. I didn't realize," the cop started. "You didn't ask. I was just following protocol." "You profiled my son," the man said coldly. "You made him feel unsafe." "I didn't." "You did." There was no yelling. No pushing. But the officer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. And then the man stepped forward one more time. "You're going to walk away now," he said. "You're going to radio your team and say it was a mistake. And if anyone else comes near my son like this again." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The officer backed away, nodding, stuttering apologies as he turned and nearly stumbled getting into his car. James stood frozen. His dad turned. Their eyes met. And then everything he'd been holding in, every ounce of fear, anger, confusion, rushed out of him in a single step as he ran forward and threw his arms around his father. His dad knelt, wrapped him up, and said only one word. "I'm here." Later that night, back at home, James sat at the kitchen table, watching his dad make a sandwich. It was strange and normal at the same time. His dad had always been like a ghost. Not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't stay. His job pulled him all over the world. He wasn't allowed to talk about it. Not in letters. Not on the phone. Just, "I'm safe," and "I love you." And that had to be enough. Until now. Did they really call the police because I was standing there? James asked. His dad nodded slowly. "They don't see what I see when they look at you." James stared at the sandwich. "Do they hate me?" "No," his dad said. "But some of them are afraid of you. And people who are afraid do stupid things. Even adults. Especially adults." James stayed quiet. "Then, why didn't they believe me?" His dad sat down. "Because you're a black boy in America. And when a black boy says his dad is a hero, some people can't handle that. They'd rather laugh than believe." James looked at him. "But you are a hero." His dad smiled, just a little. "Only to the people who matter." Later, while James slept, his father stood in the dark outside the house, on the phone with someone. His voice was low, tight. They approached him twice in 2 days. Yes, in uniformed patrol. No calls logged. No incident reports filed. It's either sloppy work or targeted profiling. A pause. I want everything. Body cams, dispatch audio. All of it. A longer silence. Then no. Don't flag it. Yet. Let them think they're safe. Inside the house, James's mom watched him through the window, worry deep in her eyes. She hadn't seen him look that scared in a long time. When her husband came back inside, she asked, "How bad is it?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I think it's just beginning." The next day, things at school got weirder. First, James was called to the principal's office without warning. Mr. Trower greeted him with a tight smile. "James, we wanted to ask about something. There was an incident near the park yesterday. Some of the students mentioned you said your father was in the military." James nodded cautiously. "Can you tell us more about that? Just to, clear things up." James felt it again, that same sinking feeling. Like no matter what he said, it would somehow be wrong. "I said he's in special forces," James replied. "Because he is." The principal's smile flickered. Right. It's just, we don't have that listed on your enrollment form. It says your father's not present." James frowned. "He's not always here. Because of his job." The counselor beside Mr. Trower leaned in. "Sweetie, we're just trying to make sure no one is pretending or saying things that could cause confusion." James clenched his jaw. "I'm not pretending." "I see. Well," Mr. Trower said, glancing at the counselor, "we may need to follow up with your guardians, just for clarity. You're not in trouble, of course." But James knew that look. He'd seen it before. They didn't believe him either. Or worse, they did now, and they were afraid of what it meant. By lunch, the whispers started again. Hunter leaned across the lunch table and smirked. "So now your daddy's a ninja, or something?" James didn't reply. Another kid chimed in. "Bet he's just some dude in jail, and your mom made up all that other stuff." James stood up, slow. He looked at them, voice steady. "He was there. He saw you. And now he knows." Hunter's smile slipped. "You think you're tough now?" he asked, trying to laugh. "Because some guy in boots showed up?" James stepped closer. "No," he said. "I've always been tough. You just didn't see it." Later that day, a black SUV pulled up in front of the school. James didn't expect it. He thought he'd be walking home. The doors opened, and when James climbed in, his mom wasn't in the front seat. His dad was. "Buckle up," he said. "Where are we going?" James asked. His dad looked at him through the rearview mirror. "To see something they don't want you to see." The engine growled as they pulled away from the school, and the road ahead started to twist. They drove past town lines, past stores James had never seen, past places where the trees grew too thick and the signs had bullet holes. Then they turned down a road with a gate. A guard stepped out. His eyes went wide when he saw the driver. He didn't ask for ID. He just opened the gate. Inside was a world James didn't know existed. Training fields, climbing towers, explosions in the distance. And then, a man with a bandaged arm limping across the lot saluted. "Sir." James's dad nodded, then pointed toward a building. "We're going in." And just before they reached the door, the sirens began to wail. An alarm. A real one. James grabbed his dad's arm. "What's happening?" His dad's jaw tightened. "They weren't supposed to follow us." James's heart raced. The door burst open. Armed soldiers came running. And just behind them, a car, blacked out windows, pulled up fast. James ducked. His dad turned toward the sound, then said 3 words that didn't make sense. "They found us." Everything happened fast. The blacked-out car skidded to a stop, tires screeching, gravel flying. 2 men in dark suits jumped out, earpieces in, scanning the area like hawks. Their eyes locked on James's father immediately. "Sir," one said sharply, "you weren't cleared to bring anyone here, especially not a child." James felt his heart slam against his ribs. He grabbed his dad's sleeve tighter. The soldiers in the background hadn't lowered their weapons yet. "James is my son," his dad said without flinching. "He belongs here more than half the people in that building." "You know the rules," the taller agent snapped. "You've already triggered protocol just showing up here like this. And now there's an unverified minor on site." "He's not unverified," his father growled. "You're just uninformed." James had never seen his father like this, like he was walking a line between calm and something more dangerous. The shorter agent stepped forward. "Sir, you need to come with us. Both of you." James's dad didn't move. He leaned down slightly and said under his breath, "Don't say anything unless I tell you to." James nodded. The next 5 minutes were a blur. They were escorted into the building, fast, quiet, and under too much security for James to feel okay about it. The walls were concrete and windowless. Cameras blinked from corners. They were taken down a long hallway, then into a small white room with a metal table and 2 chairs. James sat in one. His dad stood. Then the door shut behind them. Silence. James looked up. "Dad, what is this place?" His father finally exhaled. "It's where I trained. It's also where some people in suits think they can control everything." James blinked. "Why'd we come here?" "I wanted you to see what I came from. So you understand why I've been gone. What I gave up. And what I'm willing to fight for again." James sat back in his chair, heart pounding. "Is this about what happened at the park?" His dad paused. "It's about more than that. A lot more." Suddenly, the door opened. A woman stepped in this time, also in a suit, older, sharp eyes, no nonsense. "Mr. Bradley," she said coolly. "We need to talk." "Alone?" He shook his head. "No. He stays. He's a minor. He's my son." The woman sighed like she'd already lost an argument, but wasn't ready to admit it. "Fine. But you brought this on yourself." She sat down across from them. Opened a folder. There's been chatter. About a leak. Classified activity. Someone's been pushing information to civilian channels. James's dad didn't flinch. "You think that's me?" "No," the woman said. "But you've drawn attention to yourself. And to this place. You showing up at that school, in broad daylight, after being off-grid for over a year? With your record?" She flipped the folder around so they could see a grainy photo. Him standing in front of the cop at the park. They had surveillance. They'd been watching. James's blood turned cold. "You made waves, Mr. Bradley," the woman said. "Big ones." James's dad leaned forward. "Then I hope you can swim." The woman narrowed her eyes. "If you want your family left alone, I suggest you fall in line." That was the moment. James would remember it forever. His dad didn't yell, didn't curse. He just leaned back in his chair and said, "That's the thing about lines. Some of us were born to break them." The woman didn't reply. She simply stood, closed the folder, and left the room. James turned, whispering, "Dad, what are they going to do to us?" His father smiled, just a little. Nothing they haven't tried before. Outside the room, things had changed. People were moving faster. There were alarms again, but not the loud ones. Just silent signs that something wasn't right. And then, just as James and his dad were being escorted out, a voice echoed through the hallway speakers. "Code Gray. Section 4. Repeat, Code Gray." The guards froze. James's dad looked up sharply. "Get down," he said, grabbing James and pulling him into the shadow of a nearby wall. A second later, boom. A deep rumble shook the hallway. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, glass shattered. James clung to his father's arm. What was that? His dad didn't answer. He pulled James to his feet. Time to move. Down the hallway, smoke was beginning to creep around the corners. People shouted. Orders were screamed. They ran. James didn't know where they were going. He just knew that something very, very bad had just happened, and somehow, it was connected to them. As they turned the next corner, 3 guards were already unconscious on the floor. The facility was under attack. By who? And why? They didn't know yet. But James's father said one thing as they reached a secure door and slammed the keypad. "They found out about you." James froze. "Me? Why me?" But his dad didn't answer. Because at that exact second, from the other end of the hallway, a figure stepped into the smoke. Tall, covered in tactical gear. But this wasn't one of theirs. This one had a mask, and it was marked with a symbol James had never seen before. But his father had, because he whispered the words like a ghost from the past. No, not them. The masked figure raised a weapon and aimed it straight at James. The air felt like it cracked in half. James stared down the barrel of the weapon pointed straight at him, frozen, not breathing, not blinking. But his father moved, faster than thought. He shoved James behind a storage crate just as. Crack! The shot rang out, shattering the concrete wall behind them. Dust sprayed across James's face. Another shot, then another. But his dad was already moving again, zigzagging through the hallway like he'd done it 100 times, scooping up a guard's sidearm mid-run. Pop, pop. 2 return shots, clean, sharp. But the masked figure didn't flinch. Just stood there like some kind of machine, gun still raised, steps calm and steady as he advanced. James peeked from behind the crate, hard in his throat. "Dad," he shouted. "Stay down," his father yelled back. But it was too late. 3 more figures stepped out of the smoke behind the first. All masked, all armed. They were surrounded. James watched as his father ducked behind a column, gun drawn, scanning angles. He could see the calm in his movements, but also something else. Tension. A flicker of worry. They weren't just under attack. They were being hunted. The leader raised his hand, signaling the others to spread out. One moved toward the side wall. Another flanked the left. James's father whispered something into the wrist communicator he wore. No response. Whoever these people were, they'd jammed communications. "We need to move," his dad muttered under his breath. He turned back to James. "When I say run, you run. Understand?" James shook his head. "I can't leave you." "You're not leaving me. You're leading them away." "What?" "No." But the look in his dad's eyes silenced him. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a plan. A dangerous one. A desperate one. But a necessary one. "On 3, his father said. 1. James's whole body shook. 2. He could hear the masked figures getting closer. Boots scraping on the concrete. 3. James burst out from behind the crate, sprinting toward the far corridor. "Hey!" One of the masked men barked. 2 of them immediately gave chase. His dad popped up from behind the column and laid down cover fire. Sharp, controlled bursts. "Go, go, go," he shouted. James didn't look back. He ran through the hallway, turned sharply, ducked into a side corridor. His breath felt like it would tear through his chest. Footsteps thundered behind him. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew if they caught him, it was over. Suddenly, a door slid open beside him. "Get in," a voice hissed. James nearly tripped as he turned and dove through. The door slammed shut behind him. He spun around. A woman stood there. Not military. Not masked. She had brown skin, her hair pulled back tight, eyes like she hadn't slept in days. "Who are you?" James gasped. "I'm someone your father trusted a long time ago," she said, locking the door with a manual bolt. "You have to come with me." James didn't move. "Where's my dad?" "He'll meet us later," she said. "But if we stay here, neither of you will make it out alive." Still, James hesitated. Until, boom. The wall behind them rattled with another blast. Smoke curled in under the door. The woman grabbed his hand. "Come on." They took off down a maintenance corridor, ducking under pipes, slipping through access hatches. James's lungs burned. His legs felt like rubber. But the woman never slowed. Finally, they dropped into an underground tunnel, half-lit and filled with old wires. She stopped to catch her breath. James leaned against the wall, gasping. "Who are you?" She finally turned to face him. "My name's Rena," she said. "I was there the day your father disappeared." James's brow furrowed. "Disappeared? He didn't tell you?" James shook his head. She looked down. Of course not. He wouldn't. Before James could ask anything else, she knelt and opened a hidden panel. Inside were 2 backpacks and what looked like a tablet. "Where are we going?" James asked. "Out," she said. "But not before I show you why they're after you." She powered on the tablet. A hologram lit up. Maps, files, photos. One image hovered in the air between them. It was James. A younger photo. Probably from 2nd grade. He stared at it, chilled. "They've had your files since you were 6, she said quietly. "Someone marked you as a target of interest. Not your dad. You." James couldn't breathe. "Why?" "That's what I'm going to help you find out." She looked over her shoulder. "We don't have much time." She pressed a sequence on the wall, and a staircase folded out from the tunnel wall. Above them, daylight peeked through. James followed her up, knees shaking. They emerged in an alleyway far outside the base, behind a broken-down warehouse. The air was cold. Free. But James didn't feel free. He felt hunted. And just as Rena reached into her bag to pull out a comm device, her eyes widened. "Down." James dropped just as a dart whizzed past his head. A figure stood on the rooftop, weapon raised. Not masked. Not suited. It was a teenager. No older than 17. Pale, sharp eyes, wild grin. "You're faster than they said you'd be," the teen called down. "This is gonna be fun." James froze. Rena stepped in front of him. "Who are you?" she demanded. The teen tilted his head. "I'm the one they trained to replace your boy." James's stomach dropped. "Replaced me?" he whispered. The teen raised his weapon again. And fired. PFT. The dart zipped through the air. Rena twisted, pushing James to the ground just in time, again. The dart slammed into a metal pipe behind them and hissed out white gas. James coughed, heart slamming against his ribs like it was trying to escape. The teen on the rooftop laughed. A dry, crackling sound. Not bad, lady. But that was just a warm-up. Rena didn't waste time. She grabbed James's wrist and yanked him up. Move. They sprinted through the alley, ducking behind trash bins and broken pallets. James's lungs burned. His legs barely kept up. The teen dropped down from the roof like a shadow, landing without a sound. He pulled out a small device, a drone, no bigger than a baseball, and flicked it into the air. It zipped above them, tracking their movements. Why is he doing this? James gasped as they turned a corner. Because someone taught him to, Rena said, breathing hard. And they trained him for you. James blinked, confused. Why me? I'm just a kid. Rena stopped for half a second and pulled a small metal disc from her bag. She slammed it onto the wall next to them. It beeped twice, then blinked green. She looked at James. Because you're not just any kid. You're his son. James stared. What does that mean? Before she could answer, boom. The wall behind them exploded outward. James was thrown off his feet, tumbling into garbage and brick. The teen walked out of the smoke, slowly. No mask. Just that grin, wide and wrong. I thought he'd be tougher, he said, stepping over debris. This one's soft. Rena stood, her arm bleeding, pulling a small blade from her belt. You don't want to do this, kid. I was born to do this, the teen spat. James crawled backward, ears ringing. He spotted a pipe, rusted but heavy, within reach. Slowly, silently, he grabbed it. As the teen lunged for Rena, James swung. Crack. The pipe slammed into the teen's shoulder. He spun, eyes wide with shock, rage flashing across his face. You little. Rena moved. She used his distraction to sweep his legs, sending him crashing to the ground. Then she grabbed James again. We're done playing. Time to disappear. They ran. James's whole body trembled. The adrenaline wouldn't stop. Who was that? He yelled. A project, Rena said. One they started after your father vanished. They tried to make another him, but they needed something better. So they tried to design it. James blinked. That boy was fake? Not fake, she said. Just trained. From birth. He's not a soldier. He's a weapon. They ducked into an underground entrance behind an abandoned bus station. Rena used her watch to open the door. Inside, the room buzzed to life. Monitors lit up. Maps, feeds, data streams. James looked around. What is this place? Rena set her bag down. An old safe house. I've been off-grid for years, waiting, hoping I wouldn't have to come back. James sat down slowly, the pipe still in his hands. Why now? He asked. Rena turned to him. Because your father activated the ghost protocol. James blinked. What's that? She hesitated, then said quietly. It means he knew someone was coming for you. And he triggered the last failsafe to protect you. Me. James looked down. This is insane, he whispered. I just wanted people to believe me. Rena crouched in front of him. They didn't believe you because they didn't want to. Not because you were wrong. He looked up. I miss him, he said softly. Rena smiled sadly. He's not gone. But he's in more danger than ever now. And so are you. Suddenly. Beep beep. Beep beep. Her wrist device blinked red. Motion breach, she said, eyes narrowing. 3 hostiles. Roof access. James stood. They followed us. Rena grabbed 2 stun guns and tossed one to him. You remember how to use this? No, James said honestly. Push the middle. Aim at the legs. And don't hesitate. They turned off the lights. Silence fell. Footsteps above. A vent creaked open. Shadows moved. Rena raised her weapon. And then, from behind them, bang. The back wall exploded. James screamed as they were thrown across the room. From the smoke, a figure stepped in. But not the teen from earlier. This one was older, taller, and his voice was cold as ice. Stand down, he said, or the boy dies. James groaned, trying to lift himself. Rena stood, wobbling, still holding the weapon. Who are you? She demanded. The man pulled off his helmet. His face was scarred, his eyes gray like storm clouds. I'm the one who trained his father. James stared. What? The man stepped forward. And I'm here to finish what he refused to do. He raised his gun and aimed it straight at Rena. The silence in the room was louder than any explosion. Rena didn't move. She stared down the barrel of the weapon with her chest rising and falling, calm, but not still. James could see the way her fingers hovered near the trigger of her stun gun, ready, waiting. But the man didn't look afraid. He looked like someone who'd done this before, many times, and never missed. "You're lying," James whispered from the floor. The man's eyes snapped toward him. "Am I?" James pushed himself to his knees. "You said you trained my dad. That can't be true. He would have never worked with someone like you." The man smirked, slow and ugly. "You think you know who your father is?" "I do," James shouted. "Then you don't know the whole story." Rena stepped slightly to the left. "You always were a snake, Donovan." The man, Donovan, glanced at her but didn't lower his weapon. Funny, coming from the one who betrayed the program and disappeared into a hole. "I didn't betray the program," Rena said evenly. "I betrayed you." The tension thickened. James stayed low, watching, waiting. His hand crept toward the stun gun Rena had tossed him earlier. It had landed a few feet away during the blast. If he could just grab it. Donovan noticed. "Try it, boy," he growled. "Go ahead. Let's see how far you get." James froze. Donovan turned his attention back to Rena. "The boy comes with me. You, I don't care what happens to." Rena cocked her head. "You don't even know what he is, do you?" Donovan's eye twitched. "He's a bargaining chip. A mistake I'm going to correct." "No," Rena said slowly. "He's the evolution. The thing the program tried to create but never could. Not with labs. Not with injections. Not with brainwashing." James stared, confused. "What are you talking about?" Rena nodded toward him. You're what they wanted to build. Not because of your muscles, not because of your reflexes, because of your mind, your instincts, your resilience." Donovan snorted. "He's just a kid." "He's more than that," Rena snapped. "You just don't want to admit your experiment failed, and his father's legacy beat you without even trying." Donovan's face twisted with rage. And that was all Rena needed. She dropped to one knee, rolled, and fired her stun gun. Bzzzt. Donovan stumbled back, hit in the side, body twitching. "Now, James," she shouted. James dove for the stun gun, grabbed it, spun around. Two more masked operatives burst into the room through the smoke. James didn't think. He aimed and fired. Bzzzt. The first one crumpled. The second ducked behind the table and returned fire with a real weapon, bullets pinging off the walls. Rena grabbed James and yanked him into a side passage. They ran through darkness, the air thick with dust and gunpowder. James's ears rang. His heart felt like it would explode. "Why do they want me?" he panted. "What does this evolution thing even mean?" Rena skidded to a stop in front of a steel door. "Because your father didn't just leave the program," she said. "He stole something when he left. Something they'd been working on for years." She typed a code into a keypad. The door slid open. "Something they put inside you when you were still in your mother's womb." James stopped cold. "What?" Rena grabbed his hand and pulled him through. The door slammed shut behind them, locking automatically. James stood in a new room. This one small, round, filled with old monitors and databanks. He turned to Rena, jaw tight. "You're saying they experimented on me? Before I was even born?" She looked at him, pained. "Not in the way you think. They took something your father had, mental mapping, situational recall, enhanced perception, and ran simulations. Thought they could transfer it genetically. They didn't know if it would work." James stumbled back, trying to make sense of it. "But that's impossible." "No," Rena said. "It's classified." James dropped to the floor, head in his hands. "They made me a project," he whispered. "Like that team that chased us." "No," Rena said, kneeling beside him. "They tried to make another you. They failed. You're not their weapon. You're their reminder that nature beat their science." James looked up at her. "Then why keep coming after me?" "Because if the truth gets out," she said, "the entire program falls." Suddenly, the wall monitor lit up. "Incoming transmission." Rena spun around. "That's not supposed to be possible." She tapped the console. A grainy video flickered on screen. It was him, James's father. Alive, injured, blood on his forehead, smoke behind him. "Rena," he said, "if you're seeing this, they've taken the outer perimeter. They know about the boy. They know about the file." James leaned in. "Dad." His father looked straight into the camera. "James, you listen to me. I don't care what they tell you. You are not their experiment. You are mine. You're my son. And they're terrified of what that means." He coughed hard. "I'm heading for extraction point Echo 6. They'll expect me to run. So I won't. I'm going to make my stand. And if I don't make it..." The screen cut to static. "No," James shouted. "No, no, no." Rena slammed the console. Signal jammed. They cut him off. James stood. No, I'm not hiding anymore. Rena grabbed his arm. James, I have to go to him. They want you to do that. I don't care. His voice echoed off the concrete walls. I'm done running, James said. I'm done letting them control everything. Rena stared at him. Then slowly, reluctantly, she nodded. Okay, then we go to Echo 6. She pulled a tablet from her pack and flicked on the map. But we won't walk in through the front. Then how? James asked. We go under. And as she pulled up the schematics of a hidden tunnel beneath the facility, the door behind them began to glow red. Breached. Rena's face hardened. They found us again. From behind the door, a new voice echoed. But it wasn't Donovan. It was the teen, the one from the rooftop. James, he called, his voice sing-song and mocking. You can run all day, but eventually, they're going to make you choose. James looked at Rena, then at the glowing door, then down at the tunnel map. Let's end this, he said. And he meant it. The air behind the steel door shimmered like heat on pavement. The locking mechanism turned, one slow, dreadful click at a time. James stared at the glowing frame as the voice came again. I could have been you, the teen said, still on the other side. But you got lucky. Rena didn't wait for another word. She grabbed James by the shoulder and turned him toward the tunnel hatch beneath the floor panel. We don't have time to waste, she said. This tunnel leads to the extraction point, Echo 6. We follow it, no matter what. James swallowed hard and nodded. Rena pulled the panel up and helped James climb down first. The shaft was narrow, cold, and pitch black until she tapped a small switch on her wrist, lighting up the walls with a low blue glow. The door behind them gave one final hiss. And then the boom came. The room above them was consumed in fire and smoke as they slammed the hatch shut behind them. But they were already gone. Deep beneath the ground, Rena led the way, flashlights swinging left to right. James followed close behind, heart racing, thoughts louder than his footsteps. He kept replaying the message from his dad. You are not their experiment. You are mine. You're my son. It gave him strength, but also fear. Because if his dad didn't make it to that extraction point, if they were too late, then everything James had been fighting to prove would disappear with him. How much farther, he asked. About 20 minutes if we're lucky, Rena said. But they'll know we've taken the tunnel. They'll try to intercept. Then let's not give them the chance. Rena smiled faintly. You really are his kid. They moved in silence for a while, the walls humming faintly with the sound of buried power lines. But then, a vibration beneath their feet. Not just footsteps. A pulse. Rena stopped, touched the ground. They're coming, she said. From ahead this time. James's stomach turned. How? How'd they get ahead of us? They know these tunnels better than I do, Rena said. They built them. Then what do we do? Rena turned off her light. We go dark. They moved slowly now. Quiet. Careful. The only sounds were their breathing and the distant rumble of boots on metal. Then James saw it. Light up ahead. Flashlights. Too many. 10 at least, Rena whispered. James looked around. We'll never sneak past. Then we cause a distraction. Rena pulled a small, circular device from her bag and twisted it until it started to beep. She handed it to James. When it turns red, throw it. Far. Then cover your ears. James nodded, took the device, and stepped out from the shadows. His heart hammered so hard he could hear it in his ears. He wound up and threw it like a baseball. It clattered across the tunnel floor, bouncing, beeping faster now. Then it turned red. Boom. A flash of light. A shockwave. The guards scattered, shouting, some falling, others blinded. Rena and James burst out of the shadows, sprinting past the confusion. Bullets flew behind them. James ducked. Rena returned fire with her stun pistol. Keep going, she shouted. They reached a side tunnel and turned, running until their legs nearly gave out. Then, finally, light. At the end of the tunnel, a steel ladder led upward. Above it, a hatch marked Echo 6. James scrambled up first, Rena close behind. They burst out into the open and stopped. They were in a massive clearing in the woods, surrounded by high fences and cameras. A helipad sat in the middle, still empty. But not for long. A chopper was approaching. James could see the logo on the side. Not military. Not government. It was his father's extraction team. A deep, guttural relief poured through him. But it didn't last. A gunshot cracked through the trees. And something hit Rena. She collapsed with a gasp. James dropped beside her. No, no, Rena. She clutched her shoulder, blood pooling fast. It's okay, just grazed. Then a voice echoed across the clearing. You made it farther than I thought. James turned. The teen stepped out from the trees, gun in hand, flanked by two masked operatives. I should have ended this in the alley, he said. But I wanted you to see it coming. James stood slowly, between the teen and Rena. No, he said. You wanted me to be like you. The teen grinned. And you still might be. They'll take you in, clean you up, retrain you. Just like they did to me. I'm not your experiment, James said. I never was. But you're the reason they abandoned me. The teen snapped. They gave me numbers. You got a name. You got a dad. James didn't flinch. Yeah. And he's coming. The sound of rotor blades filled the air. The chopper dropped low, its spotlight blinding. A voice shouted from the loudspeaker. Stand down. Step away from the boy. The teen didn't move. He raised his gun. James raised his stun gun at the same time. Neither blinked. Then bang. One of the masked guards dropped. A shot from the trees. Then another. Bang. Bang. James's father burst from the woods, rifle in hand, moving like a panther, fast and lethal. He reached James in seconds, standing between him and the teen. I told you, he said, eyes on the boy. Stay away from my son. The teen hesitated. I can end this right now, James's father said. You walk away, and you get to live. The teen shook his head, something wild in his eyes. I can't walk away. I am this. Then he fired. James's father twisted, the bullet slicing past his arm, and returned fire. Not to kill, to stop. The teen collapsed, stunned, alive, breathing, but broken. James ran to Rena as the chopper landed. Medics spilled out, lifting her onto a stretcher. She looked up at James with a weak smile. Told you, you weren't normal. Then they wheeled her aboard. His father turned to him. You okay? James nodded. I am now. They stepped onto the helicopter, rising high into the sky. Below them, the forest burned. And somewhere in that smoke, the program finally cracked. But it wasn't over yet. Because as the helicopter disappeared into the clouds, Donovan stood deep in a bunker far away, staring at a monitor, watching the whole thing. And he smiled. Let's see how far the boy's willing to go. The helicopter sliced through the clouds, the city vanishing below like a bad dream. James sat between his father and Rena, who was still pale but conscious. Her arm was bandaged, and an oxygen mask rested lightly on her face. Medics hovered nearby, but her eyes were locked on James. You're different now, she whispered. James looked at her, confused. Different how? You're not running anymore. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because she was right. His father squeezed his shoulder. You did good, kid. James nodded, but his thoughts spun like the blades above them. For every answer he got, 100 new questions rose up. Why had Donovan been watching? Why did the program still care? If the facility was compromised and the plan had failed, why did it feel like something bigger was coming? The chopper touched down on a rooftop deep in a hidden part of the city. Not a hospital, not a military base. This place looked like it had no name. Just gray walls, scanning lights, and thick doors that opened with a hiss and sealed like vaults behind them. As they were escorted down the hall, James turned to his father. What is this place? His dad looked ahead. The only safe place left. The hallway led into a long room filled with high-tech monitors, holograms, and people who didn't wear uniforms, but walked like they'd seen things. One woman approached, a black woman with silver in her hair, tall and fierce. She wore a leather coat and a stare that made everyone move out of her way. You brought him here, she asked, glancing at James. I had no choice, James's father said. They moved too soon. He's already in it. The woman sighed, eyes softening slightly as she turned to James. You've had a rough week, huh? James didn't know whether to nod or cry. Instead, he just said, I'm tired of being chased. She smiled. Good. That means you're ready. Ready for what? The woman stepped aside and waved her hand. The monitors behind her shifted. A video played, grainy footage of the lab where James was born. Not a hospital. Not normal. This, she said, is where it started. James watched in stunned silence. Scientists in coats. Machines with wires. A pod, like something from a sci-fi movie, with his name on it. You were born with code no one's ever seen before, she continued. DNA structures your father carried. Heightened instincts, pattern recognition, nerve reflexes. And you inherited all of it. James swallowed. So they wanted to make more of me? No, she said. They tried. But they failed. Over and over. Until they gave up and turned their attention to something else. She paused. Taking you back. Rena stepped forward, her face still pale. They never planned to create more. They just wanted to control the one they already had. James felt like the floor was shifting beneath him. What happens now? His father looked at the monitor. Now we take the fight to them. The woman nodded. We've located Donovan's forward base. He's rebuilding the program, this time with no oversight. Off the books. Black market contracts. Private armies. James's hands clenched into fists. Where? The woman pointed to a map. New Mexico. Desert Grid 6E. Old nuclear test facility. Reinforced underground. His dad stepped in. That's where we go next. But we're not going in loud, the woman added. We're going in smart. Stealth op. 2 teams. I'm coming, James said without hesitation. The woman raised an eyebrow. You've been through enough. James stepped forward, eyes hard. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding. If I'm what they fear, then I need to face them. His father started to speak, but stopped. He looked at his son like he was seeing him for the first time. Not just as a boy, but as something more. A fighter. He nodded once. All right, but we do this together. 2 nights later, the plan was in motion. The sky over the desert was black, stars cold and silent. James crouched in a hover transport beside his father, Rena, and 3 members of the strike team. Each wore night vision visors and dark armor. But James wore something different. A suit tailored specifically for him. Lightweight, flexible, and wired with tech Rena had spent months building in secret. Designed not for strength, but for speed. Agility. Focus. Think of it like a second skin, she had said. It works best when you trust your instincts. James adjusted the gloves and looked out at the sand stretching for miles. The facility wasn't visible from above, but underneath, it was a fortress. Strike Point Alpha, his father whispered. We enter through the exhaust tunnels. No alarms. No casualties unless we have to. James nodded. The transport lowered. Sand blew up in spirals. They moved out. The entrance was buried under metal plating, barely wide enough for a full-grown man. But they slipped through one by one, dropping into the narrow tunnels. James felt the old fear creeping back. But then he looked at his dad, and it vanished. Because now, he wasn't alone. They moved like shadows. Cameras disabled. Vents silenced. Doors overridden. Until footsteps. Ahead. Too many. Rena held up a hand, listening to the echo. Guard rotations off, she said. They know we're coming. James's father looked at him. You ready? James gripped the rail of the walkway. Yeah. The lights in the tunnel flickered, then went out. A voice echoed from the intercom. You never should have brought him here, Donovan said. But since you did, let's finish this. Floodlights snapped on. Dozens of operatives stood ahead, weapons raised. And behind them, a door opened. The team stepped out again, bruised, angrier, but not alone. This time, there were more like him. 4 of them, each different, but all trained the same way. James stepped forward. They made copies of me. His father narrowed his eyes. No, they made mistakes. And now we clean them up. Donovan's voice laughed over the speaker. You're not in control anymore. You brought the war to my door. Let's see if your legacy survives. James looked at his team, then looked at the army ahead, and said, let's end this. He sprinted forward, faster than he'd ever moved before, straight into the storm. James didn't feel the floor under his feet, only the rush of wind as he surged forward. He moved like lightning, heart synced with every footfall, eyes scanning, mind calculating. The moment his new suit kicked in, everything slowed. Not time, just him. His brain filtered the chaos, highlighting threats, escape routes, and weak spots like it had been waiting for this moment his whole life. The 4 copies of him, those twisted attempts at his father's legacy, came at him like wolves. The first one lunged. Tall, muscular, brute force. James ducked under his swing and drove an elbow into the attacker's ribs. The suit reacted instantly, amplifying the strike. Crack. The clone stumbled back, groaning. The second moved in, shorter, faster, scarred cheek, twitchy hands. He aimed a blade at James's neck. James blocked, spun, and used the momentum to sweep the guy's legs. The clone hit the floor hard. Third clone. Girl. Quiet. Eyes too cold for her age. She didn't attack. Just stood there watching, calculating. James faltered. Why wasn't she moving? Then it hit him. She was learning. He didn't have time to figure out what she'd do next. Because the fourth one, masked, silent, fast as a blink, struck from behind. James went down hard, gasping. The world spun. Before the next blow could land. Bang! A flash grenade exploded. James's father roared into the fight, rifle blazing, clearing a path with non-lethal shots. He moved like a storm, precise, angry, and controlled. Rena came in from the left with the backup team, launching drones that buzzed and flashed, disabling weapons and scrambling comms. James, she shouted. We need to split them up. James rolled to his feet and nodded. On it, he sprinted left, away from the clones. One followed, Blade Boy. Good. Behind him, the clone with the mask followed too. That left two for Rena and his dad to deal with, for now. James led his pursuers into a narrower hallway where the clones' numbers wouldn't matter. Just like Rena said, break them up. He skidded to a halt inside a maintenance chamber. Pipes hissed with steam. The masked clone entered first, flipping through the air like he weighed nothing. His blade gleamed. James ducked and grabbed a metal rod from the wall. Let's see how good your training really is. They clashed. Steel against steel. Fist against bone. Sparks flew. James didn't try to outpower him. He outthought him. Every strike, every dodge, James remembered what his dad had said. You don't fight with muscle. You fight with mind. Read them. Know them. Be 2 moves ahead. He waited for the overcommit. Saw it, then struck. Wham! The clone hit the wall hard, sliding down unconscious. Blade Boy came in next, slower, more cautious. Why are you helping them? He asked. You could join us. James tightened his grip. You don't even know who you are. We're stronger than you. No, James said. You're just programmed. They fought. It wasn't clean. It wasn't pretty. But it ended with James standing. And the clone, his face no longer full of fight, whispering. They promised we'd be more than weapons. James stood over him, breath ragged. You deserve better than this. But I'm not the enemy. The clone didn't answer. He passed out. James tied him up with a cable from the floor, then ran back to the central hallway. He arrived just in time to see Rena dodge a shock baton, rolling into cover. His dad was battling the cold-eyed girl clone. She was holding her own, matching him strike for strike. James grabbed a loose power coil and tossed it toward Rena. Use it, he shouted. She caught it and jammed it into a pipe. Zap! Steam burst out, clouding the room. His dad moved in the cover, low and silent. 1, 2, 3 moves, and the girl clone went down, sedated. James turned to find the fourth clone, but he was gone. Donovan's voice echoed again through the speakers. I see it now, James. You've grown. You're stronger than I thought. James looked up at the cameras. You're scared. I'm inspired, Donovan said, voice colder than ever. You forced me to accelerate the next phase. What phase? A door opened at the far end of the room. Bright light poured in, and out stepped something different. Not a clone, not a guard, a machine. No, a hybrid. Human muscle and machine skeleton. Eyes glowing red. A weaponized version of what James might have been, if he'd been raised in a lab instead of a home. Rena whispered, Oh no. Donovan's voice crackled. I call it Project Null. The perfect soldier. No empathy. No doubt. Just obedience. James felt his stomach twist. I beat your clones. I can beat this. No, Donovan said. You don't beat Null. You survive him. The hybrid raised its arm. A cannon unfolded. Boom. The blast hit the wall beside James. Concrete exploded. He dove. Rena rolled, pulling out a pulse EMP and threw it. It hit Null, BZZZT. The machine flinched, but barely slowed. His father shouted, James, take the high ground. James ran, leaping onto a catwalk. He moved fast, remembering every drill his dad had ever taught him. He needed an edge. An idea sparked in his head. The hybrid was too strong, too fast. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't smart. Not like him. He reached the server room above the chamber. If he could get into the system, he might find a way to shut Null down. He plugged in Rena's drive. Her AI loaded fast, targeting core links, searching. The hybrid roared below. The room shook. Come on, James whispered. Come on. Link found. Override initiated. Yes. He watched as Null paused mid-step. Its eyes flickered. Then Donovan's voice cut through. You think that's enough? You think I didn't prepare for this? Suddenly, the override failed. Control returned to Admin 01. Null's eyes turned white hot. It looked up, right at James. Boom. The floor exploded. James screamed as he fell through the ceiling, crashing back into the room. Null raised its cannon again and aimed right at him. Time slowed, and in that frozen instant, James's father dove in front of him. Boom. Smoke. Screams. Debris. James sat up, coughing, ears ringing, and saw him, his dad, lying motionless. Blood. James crawled to him, grabbed his hand. Dad? Dad. His father opened one eye, just barely. Still here, still fighting. Then his hand went limp. James screamed. Rena tried to pull him back. We have to go. He's not. James, we have to go. But James stood, shaking, rage rising in his chest like fire. He looked up at Null, then at the monitors, then at the wall where Donovan watched behind a blast-proof glass. James stepped forward. No more running. No more hiding. It ends now. James stood in the center of the ruined chamber, smoke rising around him, eyes locked on Null. Every inch of him burned with fury, fear, grief, but also clarity. His father lay behind him, barely breathing. Rena was crouched at his side, trying to stop the bleeding. The strike team was pinned down by secondary gunfire, Donovan's last layer of defense. And Null, the monstrous hybrid of man and machine, was preparing to strike again. You took everything, James growled, stepping forward. Null didn't speak. It wasn't built to. It was pure will, stripped of soul. Donovan's voice echoed from the control chamber high above. This is evolution, James. Your father was the past. You could have been something greater. Instead, you're going to die in the dirt like him. James kept walking. His hands clenched, his pulse thundered. But he wasn't charging him blindly. He was thinking. Every step forward, he studied Null. Its movement, its breath patterns, the micro-adjustments it made to keep balance. His enhanced perception, his gift, kicked in at full throttle now. He wasn't faster than Null. He wasn't stronger. But he was smarter. And he remembered something his father had said during training. A weapon is only as strong as its command. You break the mind, the body follows. Null cocked its arm again, another blast charge warming up. James sprinted, not toward it, but toward the fallen clones. The cold-eyed girl, still stunned but alive. He knelt by her, ignoring the weapon charging behind him. Hey, he said. I know you can hear me. Her eyes fluttered open. I need your help, James said quickly. He's not just a machine. They built him to replace all of us. You, me, the others. If he wins, we're all nothing. She blinked. You want to be more than a weapon? James asked, voice rising. Be it now. She stared. Her hand twitched. Null's cannon locked on. James turned just as the blast fired. Crash. The girl clone dove in front of him, shoving James aside and taking the brunt of the blast on her back. She screamed and hit the floor, unconscious. James rolled and came up behind Null. He saw the crack, the vulnerable seam where synthetic muscle met human spinal nerves. The command note. James reached into his pocket and pulled out Rena's EMP spike. He slammed it into the crack. BZZZT. Null staggered. Its eyes flickered. Donovan's voice screamed through the speakers. Override. Override. Return to control. But James was already climbing onto Null's back, holding tight as the machine thrashed. He leaned in close to its metal ear. You're not him. You're not me. And I won't let you take anything else from us. He reached around and yanked the command spike loose, then shoved it deeper. Null convulsed. The lights in its eyes died. It dropped to one knee, then collapsed. Smoke hissed from its chest. The machine was down. For good. Silence settled over the chamber. James stood, panting, shaking, covered in soot. Then he looked up. To Donovan. Behind the blast-proof glass, the man stood, motionless, until he turned, slowly, and walked away. Rena ran to James's side. You did it, she breathed. You stopped it. James didn't answer. He was already kneeling beside his father. Dad, he whispered, please, please hang on. His father coughed weakly. You did it, James. I knew you would. You're going to be okay. We've got medics inbound. His dad smiled faintly. Told you, you were born for this. Tears burned James's eyes. His father reached up, cupped the side of his face. Don't become me. Be better than me. I will, James whispered. I promise. Sirens rang out above. Transport units were coming. The rest of Donovan's defenses surrendered. The program was done. But Donovan was gone. Again. 1 week later, James stood at the edge of a hill in New Mexico, overlooking the old desert facility now swarmed by cleanup crews, investigators, and protective forces. He wore a plain jacket, no suit, no tech, just himself. Rena stood beside him, arm in a sling. "They're dismantling the rest of the base," she said. "Files, weapons, all of it. Program's officially off-grid." James nodded. "But he's still out there." Rena didn't respond right away. Then, yeah, but not for long. Behind them, a convoy arrived to pick up what remained of the clone units, the ones who had survived. They weren't soldiers anymore. They were kids. Scared. Confused. James walked to the cold-eyed girl, now sitting calmly in the sun. He sat next to her. "You saved me," he said. She glanced over. "You woke me up." James reached into his pocket and handed her a small metal dog tag. It belonged to one of the others. "I think you deserve a real name." She looked down at the tag, then slowly smiled. "I'll think about it." James stood and turned to the convoy as the sun dipped low in the sky. A new day was coming. The program was done. The machines were silent. But one thing burned in James's heart, clearer than ever. They didn't win, because he wasn't a weapon. He was a son, a protector, and now he was ready for whatever came next. The desert wind howled like a warning, dry and sharp against James's skin. The cleanup was nearly done. Machines hauled away crates of tech and crates of evidence, files that would never see the light of day unless people like Rena made sure they did. But James wasn't watching the crates. He was watching the horizon, still expecting him to show. Rena asked, walking up beside him. She was out of her sling now, a faint scar on her jaw the only visible sign of what they'd all been through. "He's not the kind of guy to disappear," James said. "Not forever." "Donovan." James nodded. Rena folded her arms. "The moment he saw you beat his machine, he knew. He doesn't just want revenge now. He wants to erase the proof that you exist." James looked down at his hands. They didn't feel like weapons. They didn't even feel powerful. They felt normal. But deep inside, he could feel something else humming. A knowing. A readiness. "He said I was supposed to be greater," James murmured. "That I could have joined them." Rena shook her head. "He never understood that your greatness came from not being like him." James turned to her. "You really think it's over?" "No," she said. "But we're ahead now. He's running." And she was right. Far away, deep in a city James didn't know yet, Donovan was indeed on the move. Through underground tunnels, off-grid bunkers, untraceable transport routes. The man had no country, no name, no allies anymore. Just a mission. He sat in a dark room, watching surveillance footage from the battle, frame by frame. James running. James fighting. James winning. He paused on James's face, zoomed in, then stared. "This ends," he said quietly, "when he breaks." Back at the safe compound, James was finally allowed to visit the recovery wing. His father was there, half sitting in a bed, bandages across his ribs, and a monitor beeping beside him. The moment James stepped in, the man smiled, slow but real. "You always show up after the worst parts are over," his dad joked weakly. "Yeah," James said, smiling. "Figured you'd handle the bullets. I'll handle the rest." His dad chuckled and winced. That was almost funny. They sat in silence for a minute. Then James spoke quietly. "They were going to replace me." His father's face changed. "I know. They built a thing out of me. Tried to make others. Tried to own me. All of it because I'm your son." "No," his dad said. "Because you're you." James looked up. "They didn't come after you because you were my kid. They came after you because they couldn't control what they created. You weren't supposed to be free. You were supposed to follow orders. You didn't." James nodded slowly. "I want to find him," he said. "Donovan." His father sighed. "That man doesn't die easy. And chasing him, that path changes you." James met his gaze. "Then help me not get lost." His father smiled. "Deal." Later that night, Rena handed James a small black flash drive. "This is everything we pulled from the program's central mainframe. Donovan's old files, experiment logs, movement patterns. We've started decoding it, but..." James took it from her. "But you want me to be the one to read it. You see things differently, James. You feel them differently. That's not just instinct. It's what makes you dangerous to people like him." He plugged it into the console in his room. Line after line of classified data scrolled past. Chemical sequences, training routines, genetic codes, and then a blinking folder. Phase 9, Inheritor. James clicked and froze. Inside were files with dates matching before he was born, photos of his mother, his father, medical scans, experiments. One document caught his eye. Subject, J. Bradley. Primary objective, observe, guide growth, ensure control. If control is lost, terminate. Backup protocol, initiate Subject K. Subject K. His hands shook. He scrolled further. Subject K, secondary development. Alternate conditioning protocol. Clone compatible. Initiate only upon failure of J. Bradley. James stared at the screen. There was always a plan to erase me. Rena appeared in the doorway. You weren't a person to them, just a blueprint. But you changed that the second you made your own choice. James stood. What about Subject K? Did they activate him? Rena hesitated. We don't know. James clenched his jaw. Then that's the next chapter. The compound was quiet that night. But James didn't sleep. He sat on the rooftop, watching the stars and wondering if somewhere out there, another version of him was waking up, being told he was next. And what kind of life that boy would live, if he'd have a choice. Rena joined him after a while, 2 mugs of cocoa in hand. You're not alone, James, she said. No matter what they planned. I know, he said, but I still have to stop it. He looked at her. We have to find Subject K before Donovan does. Rena nodded slowly. And what happens if Subject K doesn't want to be saved? She asked. James's eyes hardened, not with anger, but resolve. Then I show him what I was never shown. He stood, the night breeze tugging at his hoodie. What? Rena asked. I show him what it means to be free. Behind them, the desert winds howled again. But this time, they weren't warnings. They were calling. The plane hummed low through the night sky. James sat by the window, staring down at the world below, lights blinking like stars that had fallen and settled across the land. Next to him, Rena scanned the latest recon reports while his father rested across the aisle, his shoulder freshly healed but wrapped beneath his jacket. They were flying over Europe now, heading into territory once blacklisted by intelligence agencies. Somewhere in the frozen outskirts of Estonia, according to the last traceable signal, Subject K had surfaced. James could still feel the weight of the flash drive in his jacket pocket. The more he'd read over the past week, the clearer the truth had become. Subject K wasn't just a backup. He was a mirror, everything James might have been had he been raised in the program's shadow instead of his mother's warmth and his father's whispered bedtime promises from deployment. The last satellite image was grainy, taken in a forest compound surrounded by snow and silence. One heat signature. One flicker of life. Just one boy. Are we sure it's him? James asked quietly. Rena nodded. We're sure. His father leaned forward. This isn't a mission to neutralize. It's a mission to reach him. James met his father's eyes. What if I can't? His father paused. Then you try again. The plane landed in the dead of night. Snow crunched under boots as the trio moved through a forest heavy with fog. Their path wound between old pine trees and shattered walls of what used to be some forgotten Soviet bunker. The silence was absolute, like the world was holding its breath. Then they found the door. It looked like nothing, just rust and ice and a keypad still glowing faint blue. Rena hacked it in under 2 minutes. It opened with a hiss. The inside was warm, clean, monitored, and in the center of a white room, bare walls, padded corners, stood a boy. James stopped. He looked about 15. Same height, same build, same eyes. Exactly the same eyes. The boy stared at James with calm, curious detachment. He wore simple gray clothes. His hands were folded behind his back. You're him, the boy said. Subject J. James flinched. My name is James. The boy tilted his head. They told me I'd replace you. That I was the perfected version. James stepped into the room. What do you want to be? The boy blinked. They never asked me that. James looked over his shoulder. His father and Rena stayed at the door, letting him take the lead. James turned back. Subject K, he said gently. Do you know what they really made you for? To succeed where you failed. To follow orders. To be the program. James shook his head. That's not what you are. You're a boy. You're free now. You don't have to be anything but you. Kay hesitated. But what if I'm dangerous? James smiled softly. So was I. The silence stretched. Kay finally asked, what happens if I walk out that door? You get a life, James said. Not an easy one. Not a normal one. But a real one. With choices. With people who care about you. Kay stared at him. Then slowly, he walked forward. Step by step. And when he stood in front of James, face to face with the version he was meant to replace, he whispered, "I don't want to be a weapon anymore." James nodded. "Then don't be." He reached out his hand, and Kay took it. Weeks passed, then months. James stood under the tall trees of a quiet wooded area in Virginia, far from bunkers and battlefields. He watched as Kay ran drills with other rescued clones, each one slowly learning what it meant to be someone, not just serve someone. Rena helped teach strategy and survival. His father oversaw security and kept the compound hidden from the eyes that still might be watching. But James was the bridge. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a weapon. He was the one who had walked through fire and come back with his heart still intact. One day, while sitting beneath a tree, Kay asked him, "Do you ever miss it? The fight?" James shook his head. "No, the fight's over. But Donovan's still out there." James looked out across the hills. "Then let him watch." Kay frowned. "Why?" "Because we won," James said. "Not by killing. Not by destroying. By surviving. By becoming more." The wind rustled the leaves above them. It no longer sounded like warning. It sounded like peace. That night, James sat with his mom on the back porch of their small new home on the compound. She sipped her tea and smiled at him. "You came back different," she said. He smiled softly. "Better." She looked into his eyes. "More you." He watched the stars flicker above them. "Did you know," he asked quietly, "about what they did to me?" His mom reached over and took his hand. "I knew they tried," she said. "But I also knew love would do more for you than any program ever could." And she was right. Because in the end, the boy who had once been laughed at by a cop in the park, the boy who was told he was lying, the boy who grew up under the weight of whispers and doubt, that boy had stood before monsters and chose mercy. He saved a clone who could have been his killer. He broke a machine built to destroy him. He refused to become what they designed. And now? Now he was free. As the stars twinkled above and laughter rose from the barracks where the rescued teens played cards and told jokes like any normal kids, James stood up. He wasn't running anymore. He wasn't hiding. And he never would again.